now I'm going to show you the thing about Infinite Studio, which is kind of really somewhat difficult to grasp. And this is an account that they use for demos. So let me kind of show you what this looks like. So basically, we have this chat agent here, which is conversational. It's sitting between us and six different generative AI models. The six models are image generator, upscaler, depth map generator, video generator, ambient audio generator, and music generator. So out of all those six models, we have a single chat agent which is controlling them for us. And we sometimes use the euphemism that it's actually the head of your AI studio that's doing this for you. So it's like somebody it's an agent that's meant to remember everything about what you're requesting, and actually remember thousands of your requests in the past. It can actually access them and remember them and everything. Okay, so we're starting off here, and I want to be clear. What I'm trying to show is something specific. I have a very detailed description of the scene that I'd like to see. This scene below. It basically says 1920s nightclub with moody lighting and a speakeasy atmosphere with smoke and low lighting, green leather chairs and Art Deco decor, realistic spatial proportions and cinematic photorealism, no characters. This is the type of prompt that you might put into an image generator, and then the thing that you would have this output here, and then if you wanted to tweak this, or if you wanted to get more out of this scene that you created, you'd then have to copy and paste, right, this entire thing again, and then change it, right? Basically, you'd have to tell it again, I want this 1920s thing. But our tool doesn't work that way. It works a different way. And basically, I've been using these generative AI tools for over 10 years at this point, since about 2014, and when they first started. And I've always noticed there's a problem with the way that generative AI works. There's two worlds. The first world is it's conversational, and it's very easy for a human to get access to technology. And this method, basically, most people now associate with something like Chat GPT. And the second method is where you're getting this beautiful imagery, very beautiful, powerful imagery, but it's clunky. It's like moving two levers to get a creative output, because you're having to copy and paste stuff to your, like, a Word document, to save your prompts and then call them up later. Like, oh, that worked in the past. I'm going to try and use that prompt that I used in the past. Well, I've smashed these two techniques together. And as far as I know, we're one of the first products to actually attempt to do this. So the chat agent basically is remembering in the way that a conversational chat GPT type product would remember. This is what you're trying to do. It's trying to figure it out. But then it has access to these generative AI models, which are very powerful, but are, for lack of a better term, somewhat dumb. They don't have any memory, and they don't have any understanding of what you're trying to accomplish. So now I'm going to show you why this is important. So the next prompt that I make, this is the last bit of description that I'm going to do. This description that I have here, that's it. I'm not going to describe the scene anymore. Next prompt that I have is, can you show me a reverse angle of this scene that looks towards the bar? No description whatsoever. Here's what popped out. So it actually remembered all the stuff about 1920s nightclub, moody lights, studio. It actually remembered all of that. And it actually popped out. What it attempted to do was a spatially accurate reverse angle on that scene. At this point, this is an HD render. This is where we suggest that you do your concepting, everything like that, and then you can upscale it. Now, this upscaler is interesting. It's not like an algorithmic upscale, like nearest neighbor or something like that that's happening. We're actually asking the generative AI, the image generator, to render the scene again, and it actually results in more detail and finer details and more realistic details. So this upscaler is more than just to get a higher resolution. It's almost like a finisher. It finishes the scene and tries to get it looking nice and sparkly and good. You can see it was pretty effective here. But the other thing is, like, we didn't make any additional description, right? Lastly, For our purposes, we want to also have an understanding of the scene as a 3D space. So this is a depth map generator, and that actually gives you, an idea of if this scene were to exist, this would be kind of the depth relationship of all the objects in the scene from nearest to furthest. And the nearest ones are white, the furthest ones are black. Just you just don't know how depth maps work. That's how they work. So this is interesting, right? Because wait a second, the I never even described this scene, yet we have now an output of like what it would look like if it actually existed. This is the scene that I described. Okay, so just want to point it out. That's highly unusual that we're able to get this type of output. So I'm able to get consistency stylistically, aesthetically, spatially for an environment, and I can basically turn the angle, the camera any direction and get that different shot. So if I wanted to do that, I could do that. So why would you be interested in having this depth map at the end? So now I'm going to show you why. All right, so now we are in Unreal Engine, and here's our this is the Infinite Studio Viewer, that tool that I showed you before. This is the other half of the Infinite Studio tool. So what this is a way to control your environment and your scene. I have here my screen size. Currently, I'm like on a PC monitor, which is why it's like ultra wide. I'm a gamer, so I got a wide monitor. Here's like my camera movement speed, rotation speed, all this type of stuff. Here's my tracking. So I actually have HTC Vive tracking enabled on this scene. And this is all it takes. You just put the serial numbers in right now. If you don't know what they are, you can actually just press auto and they'll auto populate the serial numbers to whatever is connected. Now here's the part that I think you might be interested in. So I have this English countryside back here. Look at this. So this is actually a combination of a 2D file of an English countryside and the depth map. This is the two of them put together. Look at this. So this is something that one of our engineers named Danny Vargas, he developed this technique of combining depth map information with high resolution imagery. And actually, even though it's AI generated and and you know it's 4K resolution, this upscaled scene, we're getting good amount of detail here, like on the floor and stuff. It's interesting, right? Um, like for example, I can defocus, which is just press F if you're using ARFX, and the defocus actually, is fully controllable, so I can like defocus these objects near. But notice, like, even though this is just a little AI thing that we just came up with, this is actually has real geometry over here. So I can, like, the near objects are actually, sharp, and the far objects are blurry. Okay, so that's somewhat interesting, right? What would be more interesting is if I kind of had control of this scene from a cinematic perspective. Like, so let me do that. Like, I can kind of, you know, make this look a little cooler. Hold on, let me make my interface a little more see-through. There we go. So can make my scene a little cooler, make it nice and maybe a little more gray, maybe some light rain. There we go. There's actually like a weather system that I can then control. And this is an AI generated backdrop. And then like now I have this whole kind of complex dynamics going on. It's kind of cool. Kind of just reset some of our color here. We have a new scene. We got a whole scene change. Easy. We had this conversation internally of like, we have an audio generator and we have a music generator. And somebody was like, what's the difference between these two? And we were like, uh, the same output would result in something different. That's pretty much the only difference that I can think of. So it chose to do like the super classy, like it's an orchestral score that you would hear walking. Like if your character is walking in this, this is kind of like what you would hear, right? Oh my god, here we go. All right, so now we got some. Wow, that was eerie. I guess that's the sound of like the gates closing, and then like the ominous squeal of the ships. Thank you so much.